What if I told you the most dangerous weapon the US just deployed isn't a missile, a jet, or a ship? It's something far more unsettling, something that turns Iran's entire strategic playbook into a useless piece of paper. This isn't about brute force. It's about a move so psychologically devastating, so operationally crippling, that it exposes a raw nerve Tehran has spent decades trying to hide. And they know it. The silence from Iranian state media isn't calm, it's panic. Before we dive into the breathtaking details of this military masterstroke, do me a favor. If you're serious about understanding the hidden gears of global power, smash that like button right now. It tells YouTube you want more content that goes beyond the headlines. Then subscribe and hit the bell. They can't match our Air Force, so they build a massive arsenal of ballistic missiles to threaten our bases and allies from a distance. Their entire doctrine is built on raising the cost of any conflict so high that America would back down. It's a strategy of denial and punishment. Their worst nightmare has always been a direct, overwhelming conventional U.S. military strike. A strike that crushes their forces before they can employ these asymmetric tools. A war they can't control. A war fought on America's technological and tactical terms. So, for years, they've prepared for that nightmare scenario. Underground missile sites, hardened command centers, dispersed forces. They believe they've made that direct strike as costly and messy as possible. But the move the U.S. just made doesn't attack those hardened sites. It doesn't even directly threaten Iran's military in the traditional sense. It shatters the very foundation of their strategic assumption that they can control the escalation ladder. Let me be clear. I'm talking about the recent publicized deployment of a specific U.S. Navy carrier strike group to the Middle East, but not just any deployment. This one was different in its timing, its messaging, and the silent capabilities it carries. You have to understand what keeps Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, awake at night. It's not the prospect of U.S. troops invading. It's the prospect of a decapitation strike that eliminates his command and control before he can order a full response. It's the prospect of his elite Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy being obliterated in port by a barrage of cruise missiles before their swarm boats can even leave the harbor. It's the prospect of his vast missile arsenal being blinded and disarmed by a wave of electronic warfare before they can launch. His nightmare is a left-of-launch war, a war where the U.S. strikes first, not with bombs, but with a cascade of effects. These non-kinetic and kinetic effects leave Iran blind, deaf, and paralyzed before they even realize the fight has begun. This is the nightmare their entire military structure is designed to prevent, and the U.S. just signaled with chilling clarity that it has the keys to that nightmare. So what exactly did they do? The deployment itself was standard. A carrier, it's escorting cruisers and destroyers, a submarine. The twist was in the narrative. U.S. officials didn't just say, "We're here to protect shipping." They explicitly linked the deployment to countering Iran's threatening behavior and ensuring regional stability, language that is a direct public rebuke. But the real flex was in the unspoken. The capabilities we know are on those ships, but rarely discussed in public briefings. Every destroyer in that strike group, like the Arleigh Burke class, isn't just loaded with Tomahawk missiles. It's a floating command center for the most advanced integrated air and missile defense system on the planet, Aegis. More critically, it's packed with cutting-edge electronic warfare suites. Systems like the SLQ-32 Vipone 6, which can not only detect and jam enemy radars and communications, but can actively spoof them, feeding false data. Imagine an Iranian radar operator seeing a phantom U.S. jet squadron approaching from the north, scrambling his defenses, only for the real attack to come from the east. That's not science fiction. That's a standard capability, and the message is, we can blind your eyes and hijack your brain. But it goes deeper. Those destroyers and the carrier's air wing also carry anti-radiation missiles like the AGM-88 HARM. These missiles don't just home in on radar signals, they hunt them. Once an Iranian radar lights up to try and track a U.S. drone or plane, it has seconds before a HARM missile comes screaming down. This creates a brutal dilemma for Iran. If you don't turn your radars on, you're flying blind. If you do, you die instantly. This is the core of the left-of-launch concept, denying Iran the ability to even initiate its retaliatory strike sequence. The U.S. isn't just preparing to fight Iran's war, it's preparing to prevent Iran from ever starting its own. That is a profound psychological and operational shift. It tells Tehran, your opening move is already obsolete. Now, let's talk about the carrier air wing. The FA-18E-F Super Hornets and the new F-35C Lightnings aren't just for dogfights. The F-35C, in particular, is a flying intelligence node. Its sensors can see deep into Iranian territory, geolocate every mobile missile launcher, every command post, every radar site, and feed that data in real time. It creates a single, fused picture of the battlefield that Iran cannot match. The U.S. isn't just bringing firepower, It's bringing a level of situational awareness that is, for all practical purposes, total. Iran's forces operate in a fog of war. The US is bringing a satellite-linked, all-seeing eye. The nightmare for Iran's commanders is this. They mobilize for war, and we see them. We know exactly where they are, what they're doing, and we can strike them before they can mass for a coordinated attack. Their strategy of dispersal and camouflage, honed over years, is rendered nearly meaningless against this sensor net. This is where the emotional and strategic tension truly crystallizes. For Iran, the ultimate guarantor of its security has always been the belief that any U.S. attack would trigger a massive, bloody regional response from its network of proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria. They believe this ring of fire would stretch U.S. resources, cause global oil prices to spike, and force a political retreat in Washington. The U.S. flex we're discussing directly targets this too. By demonstrating overwhelming conventional superiority in the Gulf itself, the U.S. is signaling it can win a conventional war so quickly and decisively that Iran's proxies won't have time to meaningfully intervene. The message is, we will break your state military in days, not weeks. Your proxies will be reacting to a fait accompli. This undermines the entire value proposition of Iran's proxy strategy. If the parent regime falls fast, what are the proxies fighting for? They become isolated, leaderless militias facing a victorious U.S. and a new regional order. This is a devastating strategic message. It isolates Iran diplomatically and militarily before a single shot is fired. Let's ground this in a hypothetical scenario. Let's say Iran, in a moment of desperation, orders its IRGC Navy to launch a swarm attack in the Strait of Hormuz. Under the old paradigm, the U.S. ship would defend itself, and a days-long skirmish might ensue. Under the new posture signaled by this flex, the sequence is radically different. The moment the first Iranian fast attack craft starts its engines and activates its radar to coordinate, it's likely already been tracked. The data is instantly shared with the nearest destroyer. Before the swarm can even exit the harbor, that destroyer, using its long-range missiles and electronic warfare, can disable the command boat and jam the group. Simultaneously, the carrier's air wing, already on alert, could launch a wave of anti-ship missiles from safe distance. The entire attack is neutralized in minutes, not hours. And critically, during this entire time, U.S. cyber and electronic warfare units are likely probing, and possibly disrupting, the command links to Iran's proxies. The conflict doesn't escalate. It is de-escalated by U.S. dominance. Iran's opening move fails catastrophically. They have no immediate, effective reply. Their narrative of resistance is shattered in real time. This is the deeper analysis. The U.S. isn't just showing off weapons. It's implementing a doctrine of escalation dominance. The goal is to make any Iranian aggression so predictably and overwhelmingly costly for Iran that the rational choice becomes inaction. It's a form of psychological warfare at the strategic level. By publicly demonstrating this capability, the U.S. is trying to get inside Iran's decision-making loop. They want Iranian commanders to look at their plans and think, this will not work. We will be destroyed before we can even begin. They are trying to induce a kind of strategic paralysis. This is a high-stakes gamble. It relies on Iran being a rational actor that will back down when faced with clear, superior force. But what if Iran's leadership, cornered by internal unrest, decides that a humiliating retreat is worse than a prideful defeat? What if they believe their own propaganda about American weakness and decide to test this new posture? That is the terrifying flip side of this flex. It raises the stakes, making a miscalculation more likely, because the U.S. has now so publicly staked its credibility on this overwhelming response. The historical parallel here is chilling. In 1988, during Operation Praying Mantis, the U.S. Navy destroyed a significant portion of Iran's fleet in a single day of retaliation for a mine attack. That event seared into Iran's military psyche the absolute technological and tactical gap between them and the U.S. Navy. It taught them the futility of direct naval combat. They adapted by turning to asymmetric swarm tactics in mining. The current flex is the modern, evolved version of that lesson. It's saying, you adapted to our last lesson, but we have learned a new one. Your new tricks are also obsolete. It's a continuous public demonstration of a moving target. U.S. capability that is always one step ahead. The emotional impact on an Iranian strategist must be one of profound dread. No matter what new tactic they devise, the implied U.S. capability is that we have already developed the counter. The race is over before it starts. So, what are the facts on the ground? We know a carrier strike group is in the region. We know U.S. rhetoric has shifted from defensive deterrence to offensive readiness to respond. We know the platforms involved carry the specific systems described. Aegis, advanced EW, F-35s, anti-radiation missiles. We know from military exercises that the U.S. has been practicing left-of-launch and all-domain operations for years. This deployment is the live, real-world signaling of that practice. The claim is that this combination creates a deterrent effect unlike any before. The deeper truth is that deterrence only works if the threat is credible and the adversary believes it. This flex is designed solely to rebuild and reinforce that credibility after years of perceived U.S. hesitancy. It's a reset, but here's the crucial point. This is a conventional flex. It's about winning a traditional war. It says nothing about the aftermath. A decisive U.S. military victory over Iran is technically plausible, but what happens the day after? The regional chaos? The global economic shock? The potential for a fractured Iran to descend into civil war? The U.S. flex is efficient for winning a war, but it is not a tool for winning the peace. That is the tragic tension at the heart of this entire strategy. It solves the military problem, but completely ignores the political problem. The emotional impact for us should be a sobering one. We are watching the sharpening of a sword so fine it can cut through any defense, but with no plan for the aftermath. The ending of this story, for now, is not an explosion. It's a silent, tense standoff. Iran is conducting its usual bellicose rhetoric, but its actions have been remarkably cautious. No new provocations, no missile tests. The proxies are quiet. This silence is the measure of the flex's success. They are reassessing. They are running their own war games. In those games, their opening moves are failing. The U.S. has achieved something remarkable. It has made war seem winnable on U.S. terms, and in doing so, it has made Iran's path of aggression seem suicidal. That is a powerful, dangerous, and fragile form of peace. It holds only as long as the U.S. maintains this posture and Iran continues to believe in its absolute efficacy. One misstep, one internal power struggle in Tehran could shatter this tense equilibrium in an instant. So, what does this mean for you? It means next time you see a headline about a U.S. warship, don't just see routine posturing. See the invisible war being waged in command centers. See the psychological battle. See the attempt to make an enemy's strategy obsolete. This is the new face of 21st century deterrence, a seamless, all-sensor, all-domain capability that aims to win before the start. It's a terrifying evolution, but its ultimate test won't be in a simulation. It will be in the breath-held moment in Tehran. If this analysis pulled back the curtain on military strategy, do not keep it to yourself. This is the kind of breakdown that changes perspectives. So I need you to engage. In the comments below, tell me your rawest reaction. Is this smart deterrence or poking an animal with a stick? The most insightful comments will be featured in the next video. Make sure you're subscribed and have the bell turned on. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. All this assumes a perfect world of flawless intelligence and execution, but wars are messy. What if a critical satellite is blinded? What if a cyber attack scrambles the Aegis data links? What if a single Iranian missile launched from an undiscovered location gets lucky and hits the carrier? The entire left-of-launch strategy relies on a fragile chain of technological superiority. Break one link, and the advantage can vanish. This is Iran's sliver of hope. Their entire strategy now might be to invest in developing cheap, disruptive ways to break that network. More advanced cyber weapons, more capable anti-satellite weapons, more stealthy, mobile missile launchers. They are trying to reintroduce the fog. The U.S. flex is a declaration that the fog is gone, but the history of war teaches us that the fog always returns. The tension isn't just between plans, it's between pristine theory and the brutal, chaotic reality of combat. Consider the human element. The Iranian commanders in the IRGC are not faceless automatons. They are nationalists, ideologues, and survivors. For a regime that bases its legitimacy on resistance, this is an existential threat. A cornered animal can be more dangerous. The U.S. calculation is that the threat of annihilation will induce caution. But it could induce a desperate, prideful lashing out. Think of a swarm attack from 100 small boats crewed by volunteers, with no command and control to target. It would be a tactical suicide, but a strategic nightmare. How does your strategy handle a threat with no identifiable launch point? This is the brutal calculus of war. You can plan for every rational move, but you cannot plan for every irrational one. The U.S. flex aims to make the rational choice obvious, but it risks making the irrational choice more appealing to a cornered leadership. Let's pivot to the economic dimension. The U.S. flex is designed to protect the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz. But its very demonstration may cause insurance rates for tankers to skyrocket and prompt shippers to reroute, adding millions in costs. Iran understands this. They don't need to win a military fight to win. They just need to make the world pay a financial cost. The U.S. is betting that the threat of defeat outweighs the cost of higher oil prices. But what if the economic pain becomes too great for allies? What if political pressure to de-escalate becomes louder than the Pentagon's desire to maintain this posture? This brings us to the most profound layer, the message this sends to China and Russia watching closely. This is a blueprint. To our allies in the Gulf, the message is, Your security is guaranteed by our unmatched ability to crush your primary rival. This can be stabilizing, but it can also encourage those allies to take more aggressive political actions against Iran. To North Korea, the lesson is stark. The US is signaling it has the capability to control escalation with near total dominance. And what about the American public? This risks creating a video game war perception. That conflict is clean, precise, and low cost. The emotional reality of war, the friction, the civilian casualties, the long-term trauma, is absent from this narrative of dominance. The US military just moved the goalposts. It changed the definition of what an Iranian threat looks like and how it must be met. The new rule is the United States will dictate the time, place, and manner of any conflict, and it will do so with overwhelming shock. This is a monumental shift. It carries the promise of a more stable Middle East, but also the peril of an unpredictable Iran. The flex was a message to Tehran, but its echo will be heard in every capital that wonders what America is truly capable of. Now, for our final call to action. Pause this video. Open a new tab. Search for US and Iranian military statements. In the comments, post the single most striking difference you saw in their language. Was it about systems or ideology? Find that contrast and share it. Train your eye to see the psychological battlefield. Subscribe and hit the bell to understand the world.